Welcome and thanks for joining us today for our bindIT webinar. We are just running slightly behind time, so sorry about that, but we had a few technical issues this morning with a unplanned fire evacuation. But we're hoping that you'll receive something out of today's webinar in any event. So today's webinar, as you probably already know, is about unlocking PI on bindIT. Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce you to the team on the webinar today. So if you haven't met me previously, my name is Kirsty Owens. I'm the National E-Business Manager. I've been with Berkley for nearly 12 years, and my background is in financial lines underwriting and broking as well. So also online today, I've got a few people helping me out. I've got Kimberly Macy. She's the State Manager for SA, and she's online to answer any financial lines underwriting questions that might pop up in the Q&A today. And I'm also joined by Martin Patterson. He works alongside me in the e-business operations and development side, and he's going to be answering any tech questions in the Q&A today. So good luck, Martin, with those. Thanks to both Kim and Martin for jumping in and helping out. So just to get started, I'll briefly touch on some general housekeeping issues. Okay. So today's webinar is going to be recorded, and after the webinar, a link will be sent to you in the next couple of days. Alternately, you can have a look for the link on our website, along with previous webinars that we've also run. So during this session today, we invite you to place your comments and questions in the Q&A box, which should be displaying in the right-hand corner of your screen. We'll also have a Slido poll, and to answer that, you just need to scan the QR code, which will pop up on your screen when the time comes. If you're having issues like we did this morning with sound, please try to disconnect and reconnect again. You can also use the call-in number provided, which was in the audio options on your screen. And if you can't see the presentation, it's important to use WebEx outside of your Citrix or company server. So in the WebEx app, preferably. There's also CPD and CIP points available for today's webinar, and these will be emailed to you in certificate form in the next couple of days so that you can then claim them on the NEBA or ANZIF sites. So that's the housekeeping out of the way. So now let's get into the key takeaways that I'd like you to receive from today's session. I mean, the main takeaway, of course, is that bindIT now includes professional indemnity for you to quote online. But I want to talk about what occupation groups we have included in this first release and what occupation groups you can expect to see in the coming months. Also, obviously, how to quote PI on bindIT. We're going to cover both the quick quote and the full quote option. I need to update you a little bit on policy wordings because there will be some updated wordings through the bindIT platform. How you obtain all your documentation and your CFCs, and also just briefly touching on what other products are available online for those of you who might not have already used the bindIT system. And finally, we'll just talk about what other current promotions we're running at the moment, upcoming webinars and seminars and the like. So here's our Slido for today. I'll give you just a minute to scan the QR code. And the question is for all of you, who has already used bindIT to obtain a quick quote or a full quote from Berkley? So I'll just give you a minute to enter those answers on your screen or on your mobiles. All right, poll results coming through there. This will hopefully give me an idea of where to pitch the training at today. Okay, so at this stage we're looking at about 60 odd percent, 60% users of the bindIT system already, 40 that have not. So hopefully there'll be something in there for all of you today. And if there's something that I don't touch on that you would like to learn more information about, you can either put that in the Q&A or speak to your local underwriter, who I'm sure will be happy to come out and talk to you a little bit more about bindIT. So professional indemnity, obviously a primary product for us here at Berkley. It is the most recent one added to the bindIT platform. And so we'll talk a little bit now about the occupation groups that we have released in this first release to the market for PI. So at the moment, the occupation groups, which are straight through quoting, is miscellaneous. And now, obviously, that's a very broad terminology. But here we're looking at all your straight through PI occupations, such as management consultants, agricultural consultants, the full range of consulting occupations, essentially, that don't fall into any of the other primary occupation groups. And this is sort of a real target area for us at Berkley. So miscellaneous PI, then we have your accountants. So that's your bookkeepers, your tax agents, audit, etc. We have mortgage and finance brokers, a smaller occupation group, but nonetheless one that we do provide straight through quotes on. Real estate agents, it's covering everything from your standard sales through to property management, even stock and station agents would be included under that, and recruitment consultants. So at this stage, we haven't included architects and engineers, which would normally fall under our construction PI wording, and medical malpractice is another one that we'd like to include in the near future. But also, I'm very open to suggestions of additional occupation groups that you would like to see, or you would essentially obtain quotes for on a straight through sort of underwriting platform. So moving on to what our sweet spot is for the bindIT platform. So we're very much targeting the SME business, your smaller range premiums starting from $850. Now that's for a PI and PL combined product. So that's looking at 600 plus charges for the PI and 250 plus charges for the 5 mil PL cover. Obviously GST and stamp duty is on top of that. The automated limits, the system will actually quote up to 20 million PI and 20 million PL, but the automated 10 PI, and from the 10 to 20 million, that would create a referral to an underwriter. Again, it's not really our target market for bindIT to write those larger end risks. We're really looking at the SME. And so to give you an indication on that, our sort of average premium on the portal is around the $2,000 mark. So between your very small sort of $600 premiums up until your sort of $5,000 to $8,000 premiums, coming out an average of their 2 to 2.5. So one of our KPIs that we have here, which is referrals responded to within 24 hours. We know that's really important to brokers. So we do maintain that response turnaround time, but essentially the idea is we want to have as little referrals as possible so that you're getting those quotes within seconds and not having to wait for an underwriter to come back to you. But we'll talk a little bit about referrals when we go through the demo. So I mentioned policy wordings, and for those of you who are familiar with the PI suite that Berkley offer, you would know that we do offer a PI combined wording, that's PI and PL combined for those miscellaneous occupations. But what we've done with the bindIT platform is we've also created those PI PL combined wordings for those other specific occupation groups that I mentioned in the previous slide. So that's accountants, real estate, recruitment, and your mortgage and your finance brokers. So that will be something new that you won't have seen from us in the open market quoting. And so obviously to release construction wording on bindIT for architects and engineers, we do need to also look at creating that combined wording, which is why that particular occupation group is to follow shortly. And another thing that I would like to share today, because I don't think enough brokers are familiar with this already, is that we do have an online proposal form link. So that's a link that you can provide your insureds to actually complete their proposal form online and return it to you to submit into the bindIT platform or print off. So as I mentioned, combined wordings now for miscellaneous. We always had a miscellaneous combined wording for professional indemnity and public liability. We have an updated 2024 version of that combined wording now, and it also covers the additional occupation groups here as well. So we have a PIPL combined miscellaneous, PIPL combined accountants, PIPL combined mortgage, and PIPL combined real estate. So to that end, not every occupation that is on miscellaneous PI would necessarily want to provide the PL section for. So this will be indicated to you in the bindIT rating section when you go to select your PL limit for certain occupations that will be set to 0. And I'll give you an example of that to help give it some context. So if you think, for example, of a PI risk such as an event manager or event operator. So happy to provide the PI for organising those events and for the exposures that arise out of that. But we don't want to pick up the event itself under the PL section. There is tailored wordings for event liability. In fact, we provide security to agencies that provide that cover. So when you choose an event organizer as a PI occupation, you won't actually be able to pick a PL limit for that reason. So hopefully that explains if you ever do undertake a PI quote where you can't change the PL limit, you'll understand the reasons behind that. So now I'm going to share the demo of basically a PI quick quote and PI full quote. Hopefully, if technology is on my side. Okay, so this is an example of obtaining a quick quote. Oh, that went very quickly. Let me start from the beginning. Sorry, guys, just give me 1 second. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing this bindIT screen. So this is starting off with a quick quote for PI. You'll see the existing products we have there at the moment, IT, ML and PL, but now professional indemnity will also show. Then you'll need to pick from that occupation group. So as I mentioned before, we have the various occupation types in there. And the reason that is important is because there's certain underwriting questions that align with each of these groups. So that will be accounted for once you select your occupation type. So going in with our sort of most basic of PI quote groups, our management consultant should be a fairly straight through occupation. You can choose different limit types, so you can mix and match both your PI limit and your PL limit to suit either your client's requirements or what their current policy is offering if they have one. So this is a minimum premium type risk. Obviously, it's calculated an indicative premium there. Things may change, for example, if you disclose claims or the like, but that just gives you a good indication of where we're sitting for that particular risk. So searching for the address, this first screen provides all the client info. You can provide some more detailed address if you choose to, or if you're happy to go with the Google address lookup. Second screen is claims questions. So here you can add claims detail if you're aware of it. You can add more than one claims matter if they have had claims experience. But for the purposes of this quote, we will say no to all the claims questions. There are tooltips along the way. So if you don't understand a question, it can give you some guidance. We see our main primary occupation here, but we can also mix and match. So we could add another activity, for example, business consulting or any of the other miscellaneous consulting groups. I've chosen business consultancy here because it's also a straight through occupation. And we have the stamp duty split. Now for New South Wales, we can take care of the New South Wales stamp duty exemption through this question here. Again, the tooltip explains the background to that underwriting question. Risk management procedures in place, yes. And the next screen will then take us to the three different limit options, which you can mix and match. So you can play around here with different limit options if you'd like to give your clients some different limit options, different excesses. You can also mix and match on the different options. So for example, higher limit but higher excess. And you can also remove a quote if you only want the one option or the two options. So you can do a little bit of tailoring here on this screen. You can also add an interested party to the public liability section. So you might want to note the landlord for their interests or a principal who's requested a CFC for something. So by entering this information here, you'll actually receive on binding a CFC, not just for the standard business CFC, but also one for this particular principle that you can provide to them. You can do some customization around retroactive dates. So if you already know their current retroactive date, if they have an existing policy, you could enter that. It may be unlimited, for example. Now, in optional extensions, you can choose different reinstatement values, fidelity, extended continuity, just to let you know that all of these things do come at an additional premium. So just be aware if you want to take more reinstatements that there will be a slight loading for that. Same with fidelity or extended continuity. So that is a quick rundown of how you would obtain the PI full quote. Firstly, the quick quote and then the full quote on bindIT. So I might just stop sharing that for a moment so I can just see whether there have been any Q&As that have come in on that process. No. Okay, excellent. So I did want to also touch on a few other small points. So I have another quick video to take you through. Excellent. So in this example, we're going to go slightly faster because I've shown you most of the screens so far, but I wanted to show you the different question set that you would receive if you picked one of the different occupation groups. And that's why the importance of getting that, picking the right occupation group in the start. So we've entered the client details and no claims. Now we'll see in the business activity drop down, there will be activities that relate to accounting as that practice. And then as we scroll slightly down the screen, we'll see underwriting questions that now relate to accountants. So if you've seen one of our accountants proposal forms before, you would be used to these questions. So basically breaking down the activities between accounts, bookkeeping type work, which is a low risk activity, entering a small amount of audit work, and also some taxation. And there is the option to include other down at the end. So if there are some other activities that don't fall into that grouping, you can enter it here. Again, you're taken to the quote options screen to obtain the various different quote options you might want. Now here you'll see that reinstatement is slightly different. There aren't as many options. Now this is because in our accountant's wording, 2 reinstatements is a standard for an accounting firm. So you will see that the reinstatements drop-down box does change depending, exactly on what occupation you're looking at. So our little hamster is doing his thing. Okay, just one final video recorded here just to show you in regard to some of the occupations where GL might not apply, and how you can in this instance actually send a referral to an underwriter if you want to intentionally trigger a referral to ask the underwriter to look at something specifically. So again, just entering all of our information. This is a miscellaneous, so the questions that come up have been fairly basic. You'll see the 0 limit there for public and products liability. If you scroll down, you will actually see the opportunity to now refer this to an underwriter. So where it says other underwriting information, you can add more. You can add more here to then send a message to the underwriter to respond to you accordingly. Now, with that, you can add an attachment. So if you have some supporting information, like you might have a proposal form already that you had completed for another insurer, or you might have a CV, for example, this information could be attached here. Or simply you might just want to put some notes to the underwriter to explain a little bit more about what the insured does. And then they can respond to that accordingly. So that was our 3 short quote demos. Again, I'm just going to go back to the Q&A to see whether we've got any questions. So yeah, there's a question here regarding the sender link. So let me just go into that now so that I can show you a little bit how Centrelink works for those sorry, those of you who are not familiar with it. So the sender link is a really great function, as I mentioned, where you can trigger effectively an online proposal form to go to your client. Now, the important thing to know about Centrelink is that all that correspondence does go through you. So we're not in any way cutting you out of the process. It's simply a link that you can send to your insured to have them complete and send back to you. Now, at that point, you can decide you will either not send it to us for some reason, if you think it perhaps might not be a suitable risk for us, in which case you can then print it off and provide it to another insurer. Or you can simply submit it straight into the bindIT platform and hopefully it auto quotes straight away for you. So that is the send a link function, but I'm just going into the system now so that I can share that with you. Just giving it one moment. I think this is a really good tool. Obviously, more customers wanting to fill in proposal forms online rather than doing the old paper way, the old-fashioned way. But also it does keep that record for you of the correspondence that's gone back and forth. So this is the sender link in this corner. So when you're sending a link, you can choose which product again that you would like to send the proposal form. So let's say, for example, for this example, we might send an ML prop to ML Company Proprietary Limited is the insured name. So then it will just generate this link. You can simply copy that into an email to your client. So ask them to complete the proposal form. When they click on the link, this is what the client will see. It's basically the proposal form that you'd be used to seeing, the print version, just in electronic form. However, the questions are more tailored to bindIT. So you can see here there's nothing specifically mentioning Berkley, but it's the questions that you would see on any ML proposal form. Although in saying that, we have tried to limit the questions as much as possible, just to those that we sort of consider absolutely necessary for underwriting these risks. So I won't go through all the screens because obviously I've just shown those to you in the demo, but you know, again, work undertaken because it's an ML quote, the questions will be different to what you would see for an IT quote, for example. Right. So, well, if there's no more questions in regard to the actual system itself, I will just touch on the other products we have. So we obviously have management liability on the platform as well. That has been very popular. I feel like most brokers are comfortable with quoting ML online as they've done it through other platforms. One issue that we've had, and I know it is an issue with other systems as well, is really getting the correct insured name. Obviously, management liability is designed for companies, and it's important to make sure that we get that insured name correct. So we originally started with the ABN lookup, not a perfect system, but it does look up the ABN and then determine from that ABN lookup what type of entity that ABN is registered to. So in this example, it's gone to ABN lookup. It's determined that this is a discretionary trading trust. So this would actually refer to an underwriter, and they'd probably come back to you and say, is there a proprietary limited entity that goes with this trust? Is it AKA proprietary limited as trustee for? So rather than have that back and forth, we've just included a new function here where it highlights, so you'll see this message in red if it is an entity type that will refer. So it's just trying to trigger you to review that company name before you submit the quote. So what you could do in this example is you could click into this field, you could write AKA proprietary limited as trustee for, and then submit. So it will still refer, but at least when the underwriter looks at it, they can say, yep, that's correct, that's a company name, and approve. And it slows, it quickens the referral process because you don't need that back and forth with correspondence asking you to review. So hopefully that's something that you find useful. It's something we implemented based on some really great feedback from our Melbourne office. And so we do ask you to please give us feedback constantly on the system because we're really open to improving it so that it's easier for you to use, or as easy as possible for you to use. So thanks to the Melbourne office for that heads up. So ML, again, just highlighting that we're starting at that really smaller end, $1,000 premium. We have actually recently increased the maximum premium that the system will quote. So for all products, maximum premium online used to be 10,000. We've recently increased that to 15,000, just to broaden the scope of what is quoting on the platform. Again, you know, it's really important, those 24-hour referral responses. Construction risks decline for ML on the platform because we are underwriting these pretty closely, as you might already know. So not available online for ML bindIT construction risks. Public and products has been also a really popular product offering in the last 12 months. Again, the really small end, so you know, your small office risks, right up to manufacturing and the like, but the smaller end of those occupations. So again, up to $15,000 premium will auto quote, and then where it's above that, we think that an underwriter should give it a once over. So referring when the premium is above 15,000. We don't get a huge number of referrals for that premium factor, but it is something I think for both your sake and the client's sake to have the underwriter just give it a once over before saying yes or no. And IT liability, our very first product on bindIT. The reason bindIT exists, I should say. So we again have a tailored IT liability policy wording, really small end premiums starting at 570 plus for your PI and your PL combined on that platform. So, and all of those different occupation types have their own online proposal form that you can send to your clients using that send a link feature. So product training, we have been really focusing on product training all around Australia this year. We've been running events throughout particularly New South Wales and the ACT. We recently ran one in South Australia, and we have some more coming up in Queensland and also Victoria. Now, these sessions, they do cover bindIT, but they do also talk about some of the key industry matters at the moment. So we're covering issues on the GL, such as the labour hire exposure, talking about ML risks, some really good claims examples in there. So if you see a product training event in your region, we highly recommend that you attend that. It's also a really good opportunity to meet your local underwriter and have a chat and see how we can assist you. There are also 3 CPD points if that assists with you attending. And finally, if you need more encouragement to attend one of our product training events, we have a competition running. This is tickets to see Coldplay. I believe November is when the concert is. We have organised a corporate box and we have tickets to give away. So all you need to do is attend the product training in your region, scan the QR code, which will be specific to that event, and tell us in 25 words or less why you love Berkley, or what sets Berkley apart from other insurers in the market. So we'd love your feedback, and both, you know, positive and what more we could be doing for you. So whether it's providing more training, coming out to your office, we'd love to have that feedback from you. So essentially that is our training session for today on PI on bindIT. I have seen quite a few questions come through. I hope that most people have received an answer to those. If not, we'll try and reach out and give you a call and follow those up with you.
Kirsty, can I get you to
So
answer
at that stage, I'd like to thank you all for coming and attending today. And as mentioned in the beginning, you will receive those CPD certificates in the coming days so that you can claim those points through NEBA and ANZIF. Thanks, everyone.